attacking the entire field with one concept. It's a very simple concept that you can teach your athletes, particularly your quarterback, and how to read a defense. And so we'll end up spreading out the field and just using one concept from spring ball through the summer and all the way through the state championship game. Okay, so here's how we're going to teach a concept. And again, we're going to attack the entire field with this one concept and make a defense really cover every area of the field. And so when you look at this, we're an empty. There's no running backs, right? So we're going to call this tray empty for us. So we have 3 receivers on the right and 2 receivers on the left. And if you don't want to change personnel, which we don't like to change personnel very often, but we will, if we're going to run empty and we happen to be in what we call our Cheetah personnel, we'll just use our running back as one of the receivers. Okay, so our running back knows that he's going to move to the slot away from the 3 receiver set. Okay, so we can go tray empty to the right, where tray the 3 receivers on the right, or trips empty, which would put the 3 receivers on the left. Okay, so that's how our terminology works. The blocking scheme on here is really important because the blocking scheme determines where the hot route is. Okay, and so our quarterback has to have a way out of a bad situation, and so our blocking scheme has to be really good. Okay, for us, it's going to be a pocket blocking scheme. And so since we only have 5 blockers, we're going to go big on big first. Okay, so we're going to identify which lineman we're going to block, and then identify which backer that we're going to block as well. So in this particular diagram, it's a 4-down lineman front, so they're going to identify all 4 linemen. And then for the 5th player, they're going to identify where the middle backer is. Okay, so those would be the 5. And so the way that they decide how to do that, or the play caller putting the play in, was we want to make sure that the hot route is towards the number 3 receiver. Okay, because we want to make sure that if that linebacker comes free, in case they have a 4-2 box, we have to be able to throw that quick slant right behind them. And so that's why it's designed to have that number 3 receiver run this post. Okay, so if it happened to be a 4-2 front, we would block these 4 linemen with the backside linebacker and allow that guy to be the hot. In case he decided to go on a blitz or a stunt, we can drop the ball off right behind him. Okay, so that's how we're going to block it. And our linemen know that, our quarterback knows that, and that inside receiver knows that as well. Okay, so beyond that though, if we're blocking everybody up front, what's the scheme? How does it work? Okay, where does the quarterback put his eyes? Well, the first thing we're going to tell our quarterback is how to read the defense. Okay, depending on how the defense is structured, it's going to depend on where he puts his eyes first. Okay, so if the defense has a too high structure versus this particular formation, the quarterback's eyes are going to be directly center of the field. Okay, so what we're going to tell him is, if it's a too high structure, we're going to look at the Cheetah first and try to identify, can we get the ball to the post? Because if we can, we're going to throw it. We're going to pop the top off. This is the number 1 read. If I call this play from the sideline, that's where I want the ball to go, because I think we can pop the top off. Now, things change when the defense changes, right? So we got to make smart decisions. Our quarterback has to make smart decisions. Okay, so, but if it's a too high look and our inside receiver is a good receiver that can create his own space, we're going to tell him to stay vertical as best that he can, push on the inside hip of the safety, push vertical like you're running a seam, and allow the quarterback to throw you open. Okay, don't immediately go to the middle of the field and cause both safeties to crash on you, because if you go to the middle of the field right away, that window is going to close. And then same thing for our quarterback. If our Cheetah, our inside receiver, is running down the seam, we're not going to throw the ball to him. Okay, we're going to throw the ball in a position to throw him open. Okay, we're going to make him get open by breaking off to the ball. Okay, so he's going to try to stay on this seam as long as possible, then break off late. On the other ends of it, okay, the other receivers in this particular play, what we call switch stop. The reason it's called switch is because the receivers are switching spots. And the reason it's called stop is because this X and that Y are running what we call dig routes, okay? They're going to push vertical 5 yards. They're going to break it off like they're running a post directly at the safeties, okay? And then as soon as the safeties bail, they're going to stop and work inside anywhere between 8 and 12 yards. Okay, we don't want to say precisely at 10 yards, because if athletes always go to the same spot, they're really easy to cover. And number 2, we don't want to run our athletes into coverage. Okay, so if we say, hey, at 10 yards, you have to sit down at 10, they could just be running themselves into coverage. So if there's a guy at 10, I'd rather you run at 8 and give yourself a little bit of space. Okay, so there's a little bit of freedom there. All right, and so our outside guys are running these dig routes. Okay, and then they're going to sit down and wait. Okay, they're just going to wait because they're not the first read. They know that. Okay, and they're going to work themselves into open space. The inside receiver, the Z, and the running back here, their first thought is, I'm going to run a wheel behind the dig route. Okay, and they're going to push vertical as long as there's a vertical to push. If they feel like somebody's over the top of them, they're also going to stop. Okay, because there's no reason to continue running vertical if the corners are also on top of them running vertical. So we're going to also tell them to stop. So go ahead and sit down on the edge, allow that corner to come down and attack you, because there's no reason to keep running if they're just going to cover that. Okay, so quarterback's eyes are going to go to the 1 first, okay, the skinny post here, and then work their eyes out to the digs, okay? And so we're going to show you an example of what that looks like. So this would be an example of our empty set. Our 3 receivers happen to be on the left, okay? Our quarterback is responsible for identifying, is it 1 high or is it 2 high? And in this particular situation, the quarterback could be confused. I don't know. It looks like 1 high, but there is a safety that's kind of helping out, so I'm going to identify it as 2. Obviously, he's got to be an athlete and be smart and what to do with that. If he decides not to go in that direction, he has to look for the dig route / wheel route. And so what I would tell him is if it's 3 over 3 with a 1 high, go to the 2 receiver side. If it's 2 over 3 with a 2 over 3 with a 2 high, we're going to keep our eyes to the left. Okay? So in this situation, we're going to see what the quarterback chose. Okay, and I think he chose correctly. So the quarterback identifies, well, this kind of looks like a 1 high, but I think they're going to rotate to a 2 high. So we really only have 2 over 3. And so I'm going to put my eyes on this hot route into the skinny post. Once he leaves the area, I'm going to keep my eyes to the left and identify the dig route and the wheel route first. Okay? So that's what that looks like on the 3 receiver side. Okay, here we are again. We put the receivers on the other side. And so now quarterbacks, again, he's got to identify, does that look like 1 high? Does that look like 2 high? Obviously he's reaching for the ball, so he has to take his eyes off the defense for a second. Okay, but the line of scrimmage should block the 4 down lineman and the backside linebacker. So this guy would be the guy coming free, which would create that hot route. Okay, so let's see what the quarterback decides here. All right, so the quarterback was savvy enough to identify that this is going to be a missed coverage. That safety is going to roll down, and I'm expecting that safety to roll back, but for some reason the defense got caught doing something. Quarterback recognized that, kept his eyes on the number 1 read, and popped the top, which is eventually what we want to do. Okay, here we are again. Now, quarterback's reading. He's going to take a look here. Is it 1 high? Is it 2 high? Is it 3 over 3, 2 over 2? He's going to identify that. He's looking. You can tell that he's looking around. In his mind, he's formulating which side he's going to attack. And so what you have here is you do have a 2 high look, okay, with a guy that's kind of like a hanging defender / monster. Maybe they're trying to double team this number 3 receiver somehow. But the concept continues. Linebacker drops underneath the hot. This monster backer or this Tampa 2 guy, he's got inside shade of number 3. And so it develops really late, but the quarterback keeps his eyes to his left, and that opens up a big window there. Okay? And you can see the receiver that's running the wheel route. He gets into his route. He knows that there's somebody over the top, so he starts to chatter down, because if he sits down in this particular spot too, he's also open. So the quarterback has 2 choices over there.